Hello, students. Good morning, and welcome to another class on the lesson The Enemy. The enemy forms a very important portion for higher secondary second year students. It's a very beautiful story by Pearl S. Buck. Till now, we had covered 5 lectures. Today, let us dive into the 6th lecture of the story. On the 7th day after that, two things happened. In the morning, the servants left together, their belongings tied in large square cotton kerchiefs. In our previous lecture, we had seen that there was a resentment growing among the servants in Dr. Sada Hockey's house because they had harbored an American enemy. Okay, so they had already expressed their disapproval and refused to serve the white man. And finally, when they find that the doctor and his wife had no intention of informing the police or handing the man over to the police, they decide to leave. So, just 7 days after the arrival of the enemy, all the servants of the house, they decide to leave Dr. Sada Hockey's house once and forever. When Hana got up in the morning, nothing was done. The house not cleaned and the food not prepared, and she knew what it meant. So, from the overall environment of the house that particular morning, Hana, being a very wise woman, she could understand that the servants had made their mind to go out of the house. They had decided to not to stay in the house because for them, staying in the house of traitors, because they consider Dr. Sadao and Hana to be traitors, they're harboring an American enemy in their house. They did not want to take the responsibility of, or rather, they did not want to be a part of something that felt like crime. Okay, it was a betrayal against a nation. It was an act of anti-nationalist act, you can call it, and it was also an act against a general sentiment of the Japanese people. So indirectly, or through their action, through their decision to go out of the house, the servants make known that they were not with Hana and Sadao. They thought differently. She was dismayed and even terrified. She was dismayed. Dismayed means she was horrified or she was sad, and at the same time she was also terrified and scared. You know why? Because first thing is that the entire household, including the children, would be left to her responsibility, and having stayed for a long time under the comfort and care of servants in the house, Hana now seems to bother about the responsibilities of the household. Secondly, she was terrified and scared because she feared that once the servants went out of the house, it is possible that they might inform the police or the army, which again can cause repercussions against her and her husband. Right? So that is why she was dismayed and even terrified. But her pride as a mistress would not allow her to show it. Still, she tried to keep her calm, keep her composure in front of the servants. She didn't act like she was nervous or even worried. Instead, She inclined her head gracefully when they appeared before her in the kitchen, and she paid them off and thanked them for all that they had done for her. Instead of showing her resentment, she behaves like a very mature lady, a proper mistress, a proper caretaker of the house, and she is able to stand tall before them, just thanking the servants for their service as well as paying them their due, that is, paying their salary, right, or wages rather. They were crying, but she did not cry. These servants, they were emotional. See the difference between these common people and a woman of dignity. Okay, a noble woman, a woman of respect who knows to control her emotions when and as required, right? But the servants, they are simple folks. They do not understand the complications of, or rather the politics of society or even government. They just show whatever they feel like, right? That is why they were very open about, remember the gardener talking about how nature would be, even nature was against the survival of this white man. That is what he felt, and that is why he says that even the bullet did not spare him, nor the sea, which had almost drowned him. But Sadao and his wife, they feel that Sadao and his wife has acted again, or rather have acted against nature, and that is why they were sure that nature would take its revenge, right? And now they are just revealing their heart. They are showing whatever is there in the heart, and the fact is that the truth is that they won't be able to live under the same roof where another enemy is available, right? So they were crying, but she did not cry. The cook and the gardener had served Sadao since he was a little boy in his father's house, and Yummy cried because of the children. Yummy, the nanny, she had grown attached with the children. Not only that, the old servants, that is the gardener and the cook, they had been staying in this family ever since Sada was a small kid. So there are a lot of, it was an emotional moment for the servants to, leave the family, but they had no other choice. They had to leave. She was so grieving that after she had gone, she ran back to Hana. Who is the she refer here? It is Yummy. Yummy was full of emotion, especially for the young kids, the baby, okay, to whom she had grown very, very fond. Okay. If the baby misses me too much tonight, send for me. I'm going to my own house and you know where it is. Thank you, Hana said, smiling. But she told herself she would not send for Yummy, however the baby cried. So Hana, on one hand, Yummy, she was so emotional. She was so, almost crying, and her heart breaking apart on leaving the small kids, because she had been used to taking care of the small kids for a long time. But she even assured Hana that if you require, you can just, where I live, so you can just pay a visit or send me word and I will come back. But Hana, she was so offended by, Yummy's arrogance. Remember how she had arrogantly behaved? She did not follow her mistress' order when she asked her to wash the white man. So definitely there was some amount of resentment within her. Hana did not show it directly, but inside she was very, very angry, and that is why she had almost made it up in her mind that whatever the conditions are, she is going to face it. She is going to do whatever possible for her children, for her family, for her husband. But never, 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 never again she will bow down before Yummy, a mere servant. Stupid Yummy, she calls, isn't it? Okay. She made the breakfast and Sadao helped with the children. Neither of them spoke about of the servants beyond the fact that they were gone. But after Hana had taken morning food to the prisoner, she came back to Sadao. Sadao and Hana behaving like a perfect couple. You can see their love, you can see the respect and affection for one another, each trying to fill up the need of the other, both supporting one another. There was a time when Hana supported, or rather, she stood by Dr. Sadao in his decision to take the prisoner into his house. And now it's time for Sadao to show his, side of, or the character of being a good, loyal, and understanding husband. So he is also trying to shoulder a part of Hana's responsibility. Okay, so both are cooperating and both are, there is a kind of mutual agreement between them. There is a kind of unseen, unwritten understanding between both the persons. So that is why we can understand that Hana and Sadao, they were also a very perfect couple, an example of perfect understanding and mutual bonding. But then something was still cooking in Hana's mind, okay, and thus she comes to Sadao. Why is it we cannot see clearly what we ought to do? She asked him. Even the servants see more clearly than we do. Why were we different from other Japanese? A very important question. Please mark these lines. Why are they different from other Japanese? Talking about other Japanese in terms of the servants, okay, or maybe the other Japanese like the general, or those Japanese who are waging war against the American, those Japanese who are brutal and ruthless against the American. Even the servants know, because the servants, they were direct, they knew what to do. From the beginning of the first day, the first entry of the enemy in their house, they had protested, they had voiced their opposition, they did not support their master and mistress. And finally, they end up taking this decision, just like they had told them before that, see, it's not possible for us to stay together with an enemy. So we will go out. They had warned them earlier. But, and when the time comes, just after 7 days, they decide to leave altogether. But the problem with Hana and Sadao is that they can't. There is a constant battle going on in their minds. Okay, and each fail to understand why they are unable to act brutally or take one strong stand, behave in this way, completely in this way or that way. Why can't they do that? On one hand, they can't leave keep aside the fact that they are patriots, they love their nation, they hate the Americans. The Americans are considered to be their enemy. Why? Because the Americans were the enemy of the nation. Whereas on the other hand, they are still harboring a man who is a white man, who is an American, whom they do not want to die. Okay, so it's a very strange fact. And that is why Hana says that why are we so different? Why can't we take a stand? Why are we, still fighting our mental battle? That indecisiveness, that puzzle, that dilemma, it's constantly there. She's fearing on the one hand, and on the other hand, she is also full of sympathy. Similarly, Dr. Sadao, he feels that he would, or rather he should, hand over the man to the police. Yet he, feels that, it's not the right time. You remember that letter he was typing? He didn't complete the report. He just wrote the first 2 lines and kept it that way. So, somewhere or the other, both are fighting a mental battle. They are confused. What is actually proper, what is right or what is wrong? Their humanitarian value do not allow them to, kill the man or, hand him over to the police, because that would mean that they are just handing him over or taking him to the doorsteps of death. On the other hand, it's also difficult for them to accept that they are being disloyal, being unpatriotic, being anti-nationalist. They are not rebels, they love their nations. So it's quite difficult for both Hana and Sadao to take up a decision, unlike the servants. Okay, and that is basically because, first thing, they are professionally linked up with a profession which is based on humanitarian goals, humanitarian ethics. Doctor, the first ethic in the book of a doctor is that you must save a life whenever or as and when it is possible. Whoever this man is or whoever the person is, if you have the capacity to save a life, you should. This is the first rule in the book of the doctors. Okay, but then it's also a question of taking sides. On which side you are? Are you on the side of your country, or are you a rebel? Which, of course, Dr. Sadao and Hana were not. Right? So, rightly, Hana questions, or rather puts up a very philosophical question. Why are we different from other Japanese? Sadao did not answer. Look at his reaction. Sadao did not answer because it is most possible that even he doesn't know why he is doing so, why he is helping this white man, why he had rescued the white man from dying. He could have left the man to die at the shore itself, or he could have handed him over to the police. Still, he is rescuing this man. He has taken out the bullet. He is serving this man. That's why he also, like Hana, he also doesn't have any particular answer, any solution to this question. But a little later, he went into the room where the prisoner was and said brusquely means quite roughly, okay, today you may get up on your feet. Okay, I want you to stay up only 5 minutes at a time. Tomorrow, you may try it twice as long. It will be well that you get back your strength as quickly as possible. Now, this is also very, very interesting. Why does Dr. Sadao want the patient to recover as soon as possible? Instead of answering, Hana's question, he escapes from the place. He goes inside the patient's room, the place where, or the room where the prisoner was kept, the patient was kept, and he, just like a doctor, dealing with any other patient, he was dealing with this enemy just like his patient, and he gave him certain instructions as to how he should start, because recently he has he had his operation. There is a particular routine that has to be a schedule that has to be followed depending on the instructions of the doctor. So just like a doctor, good doctor, he is here instructing his patient, that white American man, to start walking, how or in what manner he should actually get up from his bed, how long should he stand up or stay up. Okay, he suggests that he should begin slowly, 5 minutes at a time. Next day onwards, probably he should double the time, and that way he can keep on doubling and keep on his efforts. But whatever it is, one thing is very sure, that Dr. Sadao wanted the patient to recover as soon as possible. He saw the flicker of terror on the young face that was still very pale. Okay, so the moment Dr. Sadao says that I want you to get your strength as soon as possible, the boy is terrorized. Okay, the white man, the American boy, the sailor, he is terrorized. Something scares him. Maybe he feels that Dr. Sadao wants him to recover so that he can hand him over to the police. Yes, definitely, that is the reason why he is terrorized. Okay, the boy murmured. Evidently, he was determined to say more. I feel I ought to thank you, doctor, for having saved my life. So ultimately, he he was all full of gratitude for Dr. Sadao because despite being a Japanese, he had rescued the life of an American. So he was filled with gratitude and thankfulness towards Dr. Sadao. And after gathering some strength, he speaks out. Don't thank me too early. See the reaction of Dr. Sadao. Don't thank me too early, Sadao said coldly. He saw the flicker of terror again in the boy's eyes. Terror as unmistakable as an animal's. Just like poor, animals are scared when we terrorize them by showing them fright, or maybe, have you seen dogs, you take up a stick and you try to hit a dog and become scared, poor animal, as if it wants to cry, okay, as if it wants to fall down at your feet and beg, okay, just like an innocent animal, a dumb creature. There was a flick of terror that passed through, that ran through the eyes of the patient. And Dr. Sadao, being a sensitive human, he could understand, he could sense the fright in the boy's eyes. The scars on his neck were crimson for a moment. Those scars, what were they? Sadao did not ask. So earlier it was Hana who had seen those scars on the neck. And since this man was so afraid, the boy was so frightened that even those scars, they turned crimson, red in color. It changed color because his whole face was red. Blood, pushing upside. The pressure increasing inside his body. So definitely that is why the scars, they went crimson or red in color, velvety red, right? And this is for the first time that Sadao notices the scars. Those scars which was being mentioned by Hana, which he did not pay attention because he was deeply involved in his operation. Now suddenly he tries to wonder what or from where those scars came. Those scars, what were they? Sadao did not ask, but Sadao decided not to ask because maybe he also could sense, he could also understand from where those scars came, right? Now, in the afternoon, the second thing happened. Hana, working hard on unaccustomed labor, that means she was not used to do such kind of works, in the household, because she had always trusted, she was always dependent on the servants. But now that the servants were no more, she has to busy herself with household chores. Okay, so Hana saw a messenger come to the door in official uniform. So this man, he was a Japanese messenger of the police or the army, and he was dressed in the official dress. Seeing that, what is her reaction? You see, her hands went weak and she could not draw her breath. She became breathless. Why? Because she notices this man in uniform standing at their door. The servants must have all told already. She ran to Sadao, gasping, unable to utter a word. But by then the messenger had simply followed her through the garden, and there he stood. She pointed at him helplessly. So the servants left that very morning, early morning, okay, and she was suspecting, she was already terrorized that the matter could be out any moment, because clearly it was a signal that since the since the servants have decided not to work for them, it's clear that they were going to report, or they were going to inform about the the stay of this enemy at Dr. Sadaw's house. And Hana was that's why sure that any moment there might be a call, or there might be a police arrest or a police warrant coming for Dr. Sada and the family, right? So now that she notices this man in uniform, she is alarmed, she is shocked, and she is taken aback. She gasps. Gasp means she can hardly breathe. Okay. And before she could tell anything, or rather inform Sada about the arrival of the man was following her and reaches the place where Sada was there. And she couldn't say anything. She was so breathless that she could only point out Sadao towards this man who was waiting, right? Sadao looked up from his book. He was in his office. The other partition, which was thrown open to the garden for southern sunshine. So the window, they don't have a window in Japanese houses. You have partitions, okay? And the partition generally opened up towards the garden. The moss garden was there, remember? And Sadao had kept the partition open to allow sunshine to enter the house, and he was studying, doing some kind of study in his office. And right at that moment, Hana comes and informs him, and he looks up from his book. What is it? He asks the messenger, and then he rose, seeing the man's uniform. So as a sign of respect, okay, showing respect and regard for a person in uniform, a police official wearing a dress, Sadao gets up from his seat automatically. You are to come to the palace, the man said. The old general is in pain again. So this is the information about the general. Remember, Sadao was not sent to war with the war troops because the old general was undergoing treatment under Dr. Sadao. And now information has come from the palace. Remember, the word palace, it clearly suggests imperial regime. Okay, so during World War II, Japan had an imperial system of government. Okay, and so the general who resided in the palace, he has sent message for Dr. Sadao to come to his place immediately, because he was once again feeling that strange pain in his abdomen. Oh, Hana breathed. Is that all? The messenger exclaimed. All? So the messenger is also quite surprised seeing Hana's reaction, as if she was expecting something else. Okay, so when she hears that, there is a sigh of relief. Okay, and she breathed for the first time. Her heart had stopped moving or breathing or working for a moment, and on hearing that it is not for any kind of arrest or warrant, it is a message sent by the old general summoning Dr. Sadao to his house. Now she is relieved, okay? But the messenger is somewhat struck by Hana's discomfort, okay? And he questions all. The messenger exclaimed, "Is it not enough? Were you expecting something more?" "Indeed it is," she replied. "I'm very sorry." Okay? She tries to hide the fact. When Sadao came to say goodbye, she was in the kitchen but doing nothing. The children were asleep and she sat merely resting for a moment, more exhausted from her fright than from work. So Hana was in the kitchen when Sadao comes to her, and he could understand from her body language that she was very, very frightened for a moment, and that fright had actually exhausted her, tired her. She was laboring with that pressure. There is a strange pressure upon her mind, suddenly released, and in order to let go of her tension, she was just sitting and trying to bring in or breathe in some kind of peace, right? I thought they had come to arrest you, she said. So she lets out her fear. Why she was restless or breathless? Because she had feared that the policeman was actually bringing an arrest warrant for Dr. Sadao. Why? Because she felt that since the servants had left the house, they might have informed it to the police. He gazed down into her anxious eyes. I must get rid of this man for your sake, he said in distress. Somehow I must get rid of him. So, Dr. Sadao understands Hana's anxiety, the reason behind her tension. She was tense because of the white man's presence in the house. And he, being a caring husband, a loving husband, he didn't want to, tense her anymore or make her uncomfortable anymore. He's he's starting to feel very guilty because he had led the entire family into a very serious problem. Okay, the servants have left, and now this police messenger, and Hana panicking every time she saw something, or rather everything that was happening in the household was a cause of worry and tension for Hana as much for Dr. Sadao, right? And that is why he finally decides that something must be done to get rid of this white man. I suppose you have understood the portion till here. Thank you very much for watching this video, and please give back your valuable suggestions in the comment box below. And also, if you have any doubts or any problems regarding the portion that has been taught today, please do comment or post your questions. Thank you very much once again.